In this video I'm going to show you how to do an orthographic projection based on this drawing right here that's in our notebook. And an orthographic projection is a way of showing something three-dimensional in a two-dimensional way. And the reason we do that is because then we can really get a sense of how big things are and how to build it, how to create it. And so what we're going to do is we're going to draw the front view, and usually with your isometric, so it's like if you're standing here and you're looking in this direction, that's your front view. And then your top view would be the one looking down this way, and then our right side view would be looking at it this direction. Everything's going to look really flat, and so since the top is really flat here, we're not actually going to be able to see this from our front view. Same with this kind of edge right here. And everything's going to look super duper flat. And if we look at even some of these other ones, these ones don't have angles to them, but if something was angled, it's going to look flatter. And if it's an angle going away from us, it might look shorter than it actually, that angle would be much shorter than it actually is. So we're going to get started. Often what we do is we start with kind of thinking about, okay, what is this view right here? Where do things line up and all of that? And it's kind of as though, imagine we had a big glass in front of this and we're standing here. What lines would end up being on that glass? And that's why it's called a projection, is because it's projecting all of those views from there onto an imaginary piece of glass. So here's what we do. This is going from step 1 all the way to the end. The first thing we're going to do is we are going to get our paper lined up. And the first thing is we get our T-square, and you're going to remember that my T-square is always up against my table or the edge of my drawing board. It's always there. And so even if this is at an angle, I've got my camera a little bit at an angle, you're going to know that my T-square is always up against the table. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my paper to line up with my T-square. And so that lines up, and my camera doesn't have a short enough focal length to show you all of that. So basically you're just going to have to trust me on that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little piece of tape, and I'll put it on one of those corners. Then what I'm going to do is make sure it's still straight, and if it's still straight with my T-square, I can put another piece on that other corner. And now that I have those two all lined up, I can take my T-square away and just make sure that my paper is nice and flat. Okay. So that's nice and flat. I'm going to take this, and we want to find the center of this. Fairly simple is to take this and go from corner to corner, and I'm just going to draw a very light line. I always say if it is hard to see, and it's probably hard to see on your screen right now, that means it's probably a pretty good construction line. So it's going to be hard to see where you're at. Okay, so we want corner to corner on there, and I'm just going to straighten this out. We got a little bubble. So from there we have the center of our page, and we're going to get this all lined up. Now with this, we usually break it into quadrants. We put our front view here, we put our top view here, our right side view, and then often on the computer we do an isometric just because it's really easy to do. But for this area, that's actually going to be used for some of our one of our construction lines. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a couple lines so I got my horizontal line still up against my T-square, or up against my table. I'm going to draw a vertical line through here, and just all the way top to bottom. My T-square is up against my table, my triangle's up against my T-square, so that's a nice vertical line that I've got going on right there. And then from there I'm going to draw this view right here, and I think I'm just going to bring it about a 1/2 inch in from the top, 1/2 inch in from the side. because this is 1 3/4. I just want to make sure I have enough space. Actually, probably about 1 inch would be fine. Probably about 1 inch or so would be fine over here as well. So I'm going to bring it 1 inch in, and I'm going to do some measuring. I'm going to put that right here where you can kind of see it. And from that center, I'm going to measure over 1 inch, and I'm going to do some math here. So the width of this is 3 1/4, and so to get to my all the way to this side, that's 1 plus 3 1/4, and so that's going to be 4 1/4. In addition to that, I have a 3/4, so I'm going to go 1 3/4 right there. This one I'm actually going to do a little bit of, on the other side it's also 3/4 in, or actually I'll just measure, so 1 3/4, a 1/2 inch more is 2 1/4. Then I have 3 more fourths, which gets me to 3 inches, and then I have an additional 1/2 right there, gets me to 3 1/2. So I've made a mark at 1 3/4, 2 1/4, 3, 3 1/2, and 4 1/4. And so that should be every single spot that I have a little change in that drawing. So a change in elevation we kind of think of. Vertically, we're thinking about that 1 inch here, and then we've got 1 1/4, so an additional 1 plus 1 1/4 gets me to 2 1/4, and then I have 1 plus 3 1 3/4, which gets me to 2 3/4. So I've got my little tick marks that I've made there. One thing I'm going to tell you is that this is going to look a little dizzying at the beginning, but once we get it and we start kind of darkening in our object lines, it will get better. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw my horizontal lines all the way across. They don't have to go from page to page, but what they're going to do is they're going to go from one quadrant to the other, because I'm going to have my right side view line up with both. So I'm going to use the same construction line. Okay. The bottom of my drawing is right here, so I'm not concerned about going any further than that. So I'm going to bring this up, and I'm just going to draw my construction lines up like so. You're going to notice one thing that's kind of nice about having your T-square there and using these tools is that I'm able to just kind of basically slide that tool over and not have to worry about repositioning a lot of things. From here, I'm going to take a look and I'm going to see what views need to get in, and I'm realizing I'm actually missed a dimension, so I'm going to go back and measure that, because that dimension's hiding in here in the middle, and so I wasn't paying enough attention right here. And so I'm moving a few things and going to get back here. So it was 1 inch, and then it's another additional 1/2 inch down, so it gets me to there. Reason we measure from the same place over and over and over again is because that actually helps reduce some of the errors. And I know it's just in the middle, so I could just draw it in the middle if I wanted. But then again, I do want it to be over here on my right side view as well. We reduce the errors by doing that. We don't have as many mistakes, because every time we move that ruler, we get one more mistake. So from there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually darken in some object lines so you can start to see this view. And so the bottom is one flat view, and so I'm going to darken that in. So I just darkened this line right here. Often whenever we have these tools, it's actually kind of helpful to just slide and do all of the horizontals. So what I just did here was this edge and this edge as well on the other side. Next I'm going to do this one right in the middle. Okay. And then I'm going to move up, and you're going to notice that there's a little edge here, but there's also this whole one big plane and this one big plane here. And what I'm going to do is actually darken in this entire line. Because they line up with each other, it's just going to look like one solid line right there. Okay, so I've went through all of my horizontals. If you want to go flip kind of back and forth, that's all good as well, especially as you're first starting to learn. We've got one edge, and that is all one plane over here on the left-hand side. Can't really tell, but we kind of assume it's symmetrical, and it is. And so I can actually go over here and draw that vertical line as well, even though there is a space here that I know is further back because I can see it in my view. It's not one that we can show with this type of view, so it's going to be one that looks all very flat, and it's really hard to tell what's actually going on, and that's why we have multiple different views. And so now we can kind of see this space right here, and then these two spaces here. This is open in the middle there. Okay. So on the top view, what I'm going to do is I'm going to also kind of do the same thing, where it's 1 3/4. So we've got 1 inch, and then 1 3/4, and then we have 3/4 there and 1/2 inch. So I'm going to grab my ruler, find my 16ths again, and I'm going to kind of do this backwards a little bit. So it's 1 3/4 plus 1 inch, so that's 2 3/4, and so I'm going to move that down to my line, so 2 3/4 there. It's another way of doing it. So the top is here, 2 3/4 minus 1 inch is 1 3/4. Okay. From here we also have a couple things going from the back, 1/2 inch and then 3/4. So I'm going to make it that 1/2 inch, so there's a 1/2 inch coming in from the back, and then I have 1 2 3/4 coming in from there, or 1 1/4 is where it's actually at if you do the math on it. And then we got 1 3/4 gets me there, and then that additional inch gives me that space. So now that I've got those marks, I'm going to let you in on a little secret here, which is I'm putting my ruler away. I'm done with it. I'm not actually going to use it anymore, and that's kind of exciting for me because I like to measure as few times as possible. And I'm going to bring these across here. What I'm going to do is I'm not going to go all the way. I'm going to go, and it's kind of at this angle here, because what this does is allows us to kind of turn these dimensions and bring them here. So first I'm going to darken in all of my lines so I can kind of make sense of it. Here I've got a little bit of a sideways T, There's the corners are filled in, and then there's the center one right here. And so what I'm going to do is notice that the front is all one flat thing. There's one flat plane that covers the whole thing. The back is also one flat thing, so that's going to be one solid line. There's a portion of the T right there. There's a portion of the T right there. There's a portion of my kind of T right there and right there. And then from here, the left is a one solid plane or one solid surface. So I'm going to draw that. I've got the little cutouts here. I've got this edge right here, and so I just drew this T shape, that edge. I did these earlier, and then these ones are projecting up, and so they're coming up here in that kind of way. Again, it looks super flat because that's the way we draw it. Once you get into using these and looking at them, they start to really make sense, and it's nice that you can actually just measure them out. Whenever you talk to an engineer, and especially mechanical engineer, a lot of times they will say, oh, I got this idea, and they'll start drawing or sketching out an orthographic projection because we use them so much, and because it's kind of our way of communicating. Okay, so I've got the front view, I've got that top view, they're both looking pretty good. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to take my 45, 90 triangle, and I'm going to draw from the center, and I'm going to draw a 45-degree angle. This one's nice and dark. It doesn't need to be, but that's what I usually do for demonstration purposes so that you can see it. Any place that these horizontal lines intersect, what we're going to do is we're going to turn them and move them down. And so our trick is that we draw these vertical lines based off of where those meet. And so we've got these 4 places that they meet, and then I can think about looking at my right hand side. I'm going to move this over. So I've got a flat bottom. We've got kind of an upside down T looking thing right here, and then we have a flat, look at, let's see, yep, the flat top as well. And I had to look because there's another horizontal line, and I will get to that momentarily. In addition to that, we've got the flat front, and you'll notice I say front, but it's the left-hand side of this view, because I'm thinking about what is that object actually in that. So the front is right here, and so the front would be right there. And then I'm going to do the same thing here. You're going to notice that I'm still using all of the same tools to darken these in, and that's just because we want straight lines. We want them to be nice and at the correct angle. So we've got the good front view here, we've got the good top view here, and we've got almost a good right side view. So far we've done construction lines, we've done object lines, but we have one more type of line that you're going to want to know about, and that's a hidden line. And so these views don't have anything that's hidden from our view. This one does. There's this edge here, this kind of cutout that exists, but we can't see it from this view. And so what we do is we darken it about the same as an object line, except it's dashed. And what we're going to do is we're going to dash those lines. There is a standard for the size of the gap and the size of that. You're going to notice that it is one that I'm not actually going to teach you. You'll learn that in engineering school, but we try to make them all nice and even so that it's different than some of our other lines. We have other lines that are long dash, short dash, long dash, short dash. Sometimes it's long, short, long, and all of that. And so here is an orthographic projection. We've got our front view. I'm going to label that. You don't have to, but I'm going to, and then this is the right side. And that's how we do it in the United States of America. Other countries do it slightly differently, but this is the way we're going to do it in engineering, because we're so focused on how we engineer here in America. So there we go. That is how you create an orthographic projection.